Secret Service Director, Acting Director Ronald Rowe dropped a bombshell today while facing questions from the media.
We're starting with our federal personnel and working out. We will get, if they're willing to be interviewed, we will ask for the local law enforcement on site to be interviewed that day. We'll look forward to interviewing them and definitely getting their side of the story.
Wait, they haven't interviewed any local authorities in Butler? Joining me now is Richard Staropoli, former Secret Service agent, Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary, Fox News contributor. Richard, tomorrow will be 3 weeks since the assassination attempt. And, we did get a somewhat of a timeline presented today by the acting director. But were you as stunned as I was that they still haven't interviewed any of the local law enforcement that were on the scene, the people who actually spotted Mr. Crooks making his way toward the roof before the Secret Service even knew about it?
Laura, it just speaks to the ineptitude and how poorly this was handled, right? The prior director had one function and one function only, and it wasn't operational, right? The director of the Secret Service's primary function is to be the face for the Secret Service in the event something happens to the president, or in this case, to the former president. And right from the outset, they dropped the ball. She didn't even have enough sense to step in front of the cameras. And for that situation, I would have used the White House spokesperson, the spokesroom, simply stepped out in front of the cameras and said, I am the director of the Secret Service. 20 minutes ago, I watched the events unfold in Butler, PA, live on television, as did the rest of the world. I have spoken with my people. President Trump is safe and sound, and he's currently being tended to by medical personnel. President Biden is safe and sound, and he's currently en route back to the White House. All of the Secret Service protectees are secured. I will be back in 1 hour as I gather more information. That's all she had to do. From the outset, that simply wasn't done. The messaging and the lack of communication from the Secret Service is absolutely inconceivable.
Well, and we find out, Ari, and this shouldn't surprise anyone, that in the wake of this attempted assassination of former President Trump, public trust in the Secret Service is down at only about a third of American adults now because of how this was handled.
And that's dangerous because the aura, the myth of the Secret Service is part of their deterrent operation. People need to think it's a suicide mission. I can never even get close, so why try? And after fence jumping and now this, it sends a message that you can actually become famous and get away with things. Look, Laura, when I was at the White House and after the president would finish a speech and work a rope line, I would go stand on the stage where the president had previously been and watch the Secret Service do their job. And I would watch with awe at what these professionals, these men and women did. I considered it one of the greatest privileges of my job that I got to rub shoulders with the Secret Service. I'm a huge admirer and fan, but I am lost for words to explain what went wrong. And when you listen to today's news conference, the very basics of communications, command centers that would share information between local police, state police, and the Secret Service, it didn't exist. The site advance, where people make the designations of what is in the perimeter, what's outside the perimeter, who will have oversight, overview of those buildings. It just wasn't done properly, and we still don't have answers. And we still have encrypted phone apps that haven't been broken into yet. There's still so much distressing information going on.
Well, we also learned we kind of knew this, but to hear it from the acting director was something else. Let's watch.
Based on what I know right now, neither the Secret Service counter-sniper teams nor members of the former president's security detail had any knowledge that there was a man on the roof of the AGR building with a firearm. It is my understanding that personnel were not aware the assailant had a firearm until they heard gunshots.
And then this. Watch this moment.
This was a Secret Service failure. That roof line should have been covered. We should have had better eyes on that.
Richard, again, a roof that has a sight line, any sight line to the president. Ari knows this of all his trips with former President Bush. You know it from your service. First-year Secret Service agents know this. But 3 weeks later...
Keep something else in mind. This is the same acting director who also said this is the first event that the Secret Service has afforded Secret Service counter sniper coverage to. Part of the problem is they weren't taking this seriously, right? They kept treating President Trump as simply a routine former president or another candidate. Trump is anything but that. In all probability, he's going to become the next president of the United States again. To not afford President Trump every asset that the Secret Service has is total negligence and inexcusable. For the last year, the highest levels of government, this administration has gone out of their way to paint Trump as Hitler, the Antichrist, and the greatest existential threat to democracy. How does the Secret Service overlook this and try to say, no, there was no adverse actionable intelligence?
Yeah.
What kind of a moron are you? You don't think that those comments are going to incite every fringe lunatic in the world to taking a shot? This is simply inexcusable.
Yeah, Ari and Richard, it still stuns me. Can't believe it's been 3 weeks. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.